Hi, my name is Dr. Horkovic. This is the Hun TV program about the relationships between Hungarians and Celtic people. I would like introduce Mr. Botos László, President of the Institute for Hungarian Studies from USA, and member of the Presidium for World Federation of Hungarians, and Mrs. Margaret Botos. She is the right-hand woman from Botos László. You brought us a document about the citizens of the Scottish people.
The relationship between the Scythians and the Scottish people.
The Scottish people, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Please tell us something about this document.
Yes. I have it in English and in Hungarian. It was originally written in Latin.
Yes.
And translated into English and most recently into Hungarian. It's called the Declaration of Arbroath, which Arbroath is an abbey on the east coast of Scotland. And it was written in 1320 and signed by a number of Scottish lords, barons, counts, etc., and addressed to the Pope at the time, asking for his aid in helping the Scottish people continue their fight against the English king, who was trying to subdue them.
Mm-hmm.
That was King Edward I, who is the same King Edward who conquered Wales and who was commemorated in the Hungarian poem The Bards of Wales by Arany János.
Mm-hmm.
This declaration states that the Scots are related to the ancient tribe of the Scythians. It does call it the tribe, but it's a people. It's a big, enormous people, the Scythians, that cover a lot of different peoples. One of them, the Hungarians. The Hungarians are descended from the Scythians, or the Hungarians of today. The Scythians actually were older than the Huns and the Magyars. And the connection to the Scythians is that Saint Andrew, one of the apostles of Christ, traveled to the land of the Scythians and preached to them and converted them to Christianity. And Saint Andrew is the patron saint of Scotland. His flag, the blue background with a white cross, is part of the British flag today, the Union Jack. According to this declaration, the Scythians traveled from the center of Asia, traveled south through the across the Tyrrhenian Sea into Spain, and from Spain eventually to the British Isles and north into what is today Scotland. And they established their kingdom there. The Scots at that time suffered enormous torture and due to their fights with the English king. The Scots were subdued eventually by Edward, but this was a plea to the Pope to help them, and the Scots put the responsibility on the Pope. If he did not help them, then he would carry the sin to his grave and have to answer for it to God. They also stated, just as the Hungarians have in the past, at the time of the Habsburg oppression, that they will fight to their last to preserve their freedom. And if anybody has seen the film, I believe it's called Braveheart, with Mel Gibson, that was at this time, in 1320 or before 1320. That was the time of the same period with Robert the Bruce and they had a lot of fights, you know, with the British, with the English at that time, and it was exactly the same time, when exactly, but around 1320, somewhere around that time, or 12 something, that the Welsh people were also subdued by Edward. So it was again a lot of fighting, and these people were the ancient Britons. The Welsh were the ancient Britons, and they were also a Celtic people.
Yes.
And the Irish were also a Celtic people, and I've read about the Irish in the Irish legends that the original Irish came from Spain, from the area of Spain, which would go along with this story that the Scythians were in Spain and that they traveled to Ireland as well as to Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not the only connection, because the Hungarian writer Timaru Kast Sándor has written a connection between the Celtic peoples and the Hungarians, and has found over 1,600 words that are related in Hungarian and in the Celtic languages. Many in Welsh.
Similar words.
Yes, yeah. Very similar. And not only that, he also has shown that some of the customs are very similar. And the music is very similar. The Welsh music and the Irish music, pentatonic.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if you listen to it, you sometimes would think it was Hungarian music.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. So I don't know what else I can tell you about the Celtic connections. Can you think of anything that I might add to this, Laszlo? But what I can tell you is that the Welsh, I grew up in Wales, and I learned the Welsh language in school, and I said I grew up in Wales, but my mother was Irish, my father was English, and so my mother tongue was English. But in school, I had many, there were many students who were from Welsh families who spoke Welsh at home. And one of my best friends spoke Welsh until she was 5 years old and went to school, and then she had to learn English.
Mm-hmm.
And in the early 1900s, end of the 1800s, there was a real push to extinguish the Welsh language totally. And if anyone has read How Green Is My Valley by Richard Llewellyn, or seen the film, you can see that the children in school were punished for speaking the Welsh language, similarly to those Hungarians in Slovakia and Romania today. And it was very difficult for them. But everything comes in a full circle. Today, the Welsh language is cherished, and many people are looking for their roots, and they're learning the language. And since the Welsh were given their own assembly in 1999, I believe it was, they were given their own assembly to pass laws that were applicable to Wales, which also had to be then presented to the British Parliament in London. But they can discuss it. They have their own members of the Assembly, and they have members of the European Union.
Mm-hmm.
And last year I went to visit Wales, and I was surprised to see that many of the road signs, the towns, above the stores, above the shops, the signs were all in Welsh and in English, both.
Mm-hmm.
It was very good to see that, and yet here in in Romania, you see that they are destroying all of the signs that are Hungarian, which is a real tragedy. And the Scottish too got their own parliament in 1998, so they have their own home rule, so to speak. And that's been a movement for the last century. Perhaps I could talk to you about the British flag. The British flag is called the Union Jack, and you've seen it with all the crosses on it. It crisscross. It looks almost incoherent for you, perhaps, but it does have its explanation. The original flag of England was the cross of St. George. St. George is the patron saint of England. It's the red cross on the white. The second part of it is the cross of St. Andrew, the white on the blue. So there's a blue background, and the white. It's not this vertical cross, but the cross that would like an X. And then there's the red part cross, which is the cross of St. Patrick, the red X of St. Patrick, that is on there too. So combining all three, because the first one was the cross of England. After England and Scotland united it was actually, Scotland was suppressed by Edward I, but it wasn't until after 1603, when King James VI of Scotland became James I of England, that they became united. But they didn't become united officially until about 1707, I think. And at that point, it was called Great Britain. It was no longer England and Scotland, it was Great Britain.
It means Shetland is not free about 300 years.
From, yeah. 1707, yeah.
Years,
yeah. And so then it was called Great Britain. And then Northern Ireland joined. At that time also Wales was part of Great Britain, part of Britain. So then Northern Ireland joined in the early 1900s, and so it became Great Britain and Northern Ireland. So now it's called the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
And why do we Hungarians turning now towards the Scots, with this document?
Why are we looking at this document?
Yes.
Well, the Hungarians are looking for their relatives in the East and in the West. They're looking for connections in the East with the Uyghurs and the other peoples in the East, in the Kazakhs, I think, Kazakhstan,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
And they're also looking toward the West to the Celtic peoples, and they're hoping to establish some connections with people in the West, because there are people in America, many Scottish, Irish, Welsh in America, apart from those in the British Isles, who may be interested in establishing connection with the Hungarians. And so, does that answer your question?
No, not exactly.
What more can I say?
But I would like to add to that. We Hungarians, we fought for Europe approximately, actually much more than 1,000 years. We were defending Europe constantly, and yet we never get any recognition for it. Actually, what we get from West, actually what we call Trianon 1920, and because Europe still regard us as invaders into Europe, and we're looking for actually friend people who is sympathizing with it, because we definitely feel Europeans. Our ancestors lived here for thousands and thousands of years. This is what actually the new science proved that. So we're looking for friendly people who is sympathizing with us here in Europe, and at the same time we want to stretch out our connections from that territory, East Asia, who actually those people very openly they declared brotherhood with us Hungarians. So that way we definitely we feel that we could help, these people here in Europe advocate their history and their tragedy, because they definitely have tragedy, because we know that there was the Soviet Union, they suffered tremendously. So we can help for them in that respect. And at the same time, we are expecting from European people who try to present to them, to our sufferings, what what we did for Europe, and yet we never received any gratification. So we want actually what belonging, just understandings and friendly attitude in Europe, where we are here, and we intend to stay here for a long time.
Yeah. The feeling for the country, the love for the country is very obvious, and it would be good to revive that strong feeling that you see in this declaration of our growth, to fight to the last, to preserve the country and the customs.
And reading that declaration, we just learned that how the Scottish people and the Welsh people feel about freedom, and this is actually what the Hungarian customs or the Hungarian heritage felt in the past, exactly, just as deep as they did. And unfortunately, the present situation, what we're living in now, that looks like our nation is condemned to a very bad fate, because our how can I say that, our leaders, or I don't want to say that our government, but I could say that actually is not really standing up for the rights of the Hungarian people.
Mm.
For some reason they tied their interest for outside powers, and which is anti-Hungarian.
Dear Laszlo, can you tell us something about your Institute of Hungarian Study? Why was necessary to do that in USA?
Yeah, the Hungarian study, we did that because when in 1956 we went to the West, after the Hungarian uprising, the freedom fight, and then we really learned that how much our history, the Hungarian history, is backwards, and how much they did not teach it, how much they kept under the table, and the freedom. When we, after 56 actually, we went to Europe, we learned, to West, we learned that all but for centuries they kept behind us, kept concealed from us, all these new researches came in broad light, and when we learned that, so our intention was that new, to us, new researchers provide to the Hungarian people and the West at the same time. So that's why publish articles and books, translating books. So through this translation, the West would learn about this, the true history, not just the history, but they wrote us the victors, and that way they totally falsified the actual Hungarian history, because that way we feel the people, but they didn't get a real picture of the Hungarian soul and the Hungarian being.
You have a son?
Yes.
He is Hungarian. He is living here in Hungary.
Yeah, Hungary,
Not
yes.
very wide from us.
Not very far from us. No, he is here in Budapest, and he graduated from the University of Indiana, and he had his degree in history and political science.
And ancient history.
And he came
Double.
to Hungary, and he met his wife here, and he stayed here. So he's now the father of 4 beautiful children, and he doesn't intend to go back.
You must be a very happy grandmother then.
Oh yes.
I think so.
He doesn't intend to go back to America.
Mhm.
So I guess eventually we might make the decision to come over here.
And how long time you stay momentarily in Hungarian?
Well, momentarily until June the 15th.
So not very much.
Not long anymore. No,
No.
but we came on April 13th, so it's been 2 months.
How often you come to Hungary?
Once every 2 years, but we're
Every
trying to
2
come
years.
once every year, but it's difficult to, with our retirement, to save up enough to be able to keep going.
And leave my dog in Hungary, alone, a beautiful large.
In America.
A dog in America, and that's a very hard decision for me to leave him.
What for
behind.
kind?
Labrador.
This is a big one.
Big one.
Big
He's
black.
my son. I feel like with him we are like he's my son,
You
because my
must
son
buy
left
very
me.
much food for him, no?
Yes. Yeah, he likes to eat.
We go up every day up to the mountain with him. He's really a good friend.
Okay. Okay, I thank you for your coming to us.
You're very welcome. Thank you for
It's
having
very nice
us.
for you. Thank you very much.
Very welcome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.